Holy...
Humans, what have you done?
Alright, in today's video we're going to be talking about the Dusty build. Now, this is a build I've been experimenting with on stream, and we found out that it's actually very, very viable. In fact, it can deal a lot of DPS under the right circumstances. Now, I do want to quickly preface, unlike Bingo and Wildfire, which you can make work in pretty much any scenario because of the boots, this build specifically works best on bosses and enemies that have weak spots exposed. Now, reasoning for this is because the Dusty specifically relies on hitting weak spots, and again, if a boss doesn't have a weak spot, you're going to be doing not much damage at all. So you really only want to use this build for high weak spot based bosses, dungeons, and it's good for PvP too, provided you have good aim. But the real benefit of this build comes from silo bosses, and especially like EX1 where you get your mask mods and things like that. It is very good for speedrunning, and killing trash mobs is what I found it to be very strong at. And we're stacking it with the Bingo as we're using it to purposefully just mark targets. So we're going to mark, and then we're going to shoot our Dusty like so. Now, obviously don't go off the dummy for damage numbers, but you could definitely make this build work in PvP. But I will mention at the same time, this is definitely more of a PvE focused build compared to my usual PvP builds. With that said, this is still a very fun build, and I've been enjoying using it a lot, as it is bringing a little bit of diversity into my kits, because I am starting to get extremely fucking bored of using Doombringer and Wildfire. So this just spices it up a little bit, and the best part is it's extremely easy to build. The best part about the Dusty is that if you've played at least a couple seasons, you should easily be able to max star the G17 Dusty. So obviously the most important thing is, we'll quickly just go from top to bottom, is what are we running on the Dusty itself. Now, I'm running the calibration blueprint with rapid style and double weak spot. Again, we'll quickly read through the key perks of Dusty, is that is based on weak spot. So you have to build weak spot with this. You don't want to build crit. It is completely a weak spot weapon. 55% chance to trigger shrapnel when hitting a weak spot. So the only way to trigger shrapnel on this weapon is hitting a weak spot. That is why you build into weak spot. There's no point in building into crit if you have to weak spot to proc the special ability, right? This is a full weak spot build. And again, the best part about this is when you hit a weak spot, it can shrapnel hit the weak spot. It also has a third additional perk of just extra 15% weak spot damage. To that, as I said at the start, we're stacking this with Bingo purely to mark, which gives us attack, which is just more damage. Pretty much want to run a bullseye weapon offhand with almost any build these days, you know, Soccer, Corrosion, MP7, Wildfire, Jaws. Bingo or Wildfire offhand is basically king, simply for marking the enemy, so you get extra damage on your main hand. Melee weapon doesn't really matter at the end of the day. That can be anything. I just use the Masamune. On the Bingo itself, it doesn't matter. Again, you could run a Giga Bingo if you wanted to, and still do a lot of damage with it, is the best part. But again, we're purely using it for marking in this case. On the Glock itself, we are using a Shatter Them All mod. This so far is the best mod out of all the tests I did on stream, and I've had the best success with. For the accessories, we're running pretty much all stability, because this thing does pack quite a lot of recoil, and we want to make sure that we definitely just tone that down as much as we can. Obviously, extended pistol mag, the fast fire rate, you chew through ammo at a fucking fast rate. Now, the quick thing I want to mention before we jump into the armor here is the key armor I'm using is the Beret, but you can also use the gas type or the gas mask, which is also very, very viable. Now, I don't have enough Starcrom for this, but I actually do believe this would be the better helmet to run. Again, I just don't have the Starcrom for it, so I'm using the Beret, which is the budget version, and you can also get for free from opening mystical crates in the Nalcott region. So the next sort of pieces of the armor is we're running the classic 3-piece Renegade. This is a given, right? It's fantastic for weak spot builds. You're hitting the weak spot, you're building up stacks, and the best part about Dusty is you're building up those stacks incredibly fast because of the fire rate. We're already at 8 stacks. And then we're running a 1-piece Bastille. If you're on a prison class server, we're running the Lightning Counter Fabric. I wouldn't worry about that too much. This build is more intended for us going into the Way of Winter scenario than it is for the prison verse server. This is a PvE focused build, as I've mentioned at the start. If you're wondering why I'm running green boots, that is for the 1-piece movement speed bonus. Now, you can run any other 1-piece set bonus you like. It is up to you. You could run heavy for an extra 10% HP. You could run a 1-piece Falcon for stand reduction cost. Personally, I like having more movement speed in PvE. I sacrifice a lot of HP doing that, but personally, I really, really enjoy just having movement speed, in PvE especially. I don't mind being squishy. It's PvE at the end of the day, right? If you're in PvP, you could probably switch this out for a heavy set piece for the HP bonus. So that is pretty much all the armor. We'll get on to the armor mods now. On the helmet here, we're running a momentum up, which is going to give us a 10% faster fire rate for the first 50%, and then extra weapon damage by 30% for the next 50%. All in all, this is a fantastic mod, especially for this weapon with its exceptionally fast fire rate by default, stacking that with a weak spot and weapon damage as our primary suffixes we want to look out for. On the Renegade mask, we're running Shrapnel Carnage. Out of all the testing I did on stream, this was the one that gave me the best results, which is hit weight 100%, and weak spot damage 25, and again, weak spot and weapon damage is what we're stacking there. I don't have the greatest mods, by the way. I got pretty unlucky with RNG. On top, running Resist Advantage for PvP. For PvE, you're actually better off running the weak spot blue with weak spot and weapon damage substats. Again, more weak spot for this build specifically, which again does mean that it is not going to be as proficient in bosses that do not have weak spots. It is a weak spot build that works best with weak spot enemies. On the legs, we're actually using Bullet Cipher. Now, if you're wondering why I didn't go with like 3 strikes, Unstoppable Precision, first off, Unstoppable Precision doesn't make sense as we're not going to be exceptionally far from the target at all. And 3 strikes also doesn't make sense as that's only the first 3 bullets. We're going to get the most benefits out of using Bullet Siphon, which is weapon damage plus 5% for every 5 bullets consumed. If you find this isn't working for you, you could actually also run a blue munitions or another blue weak spot, which is actually also another really good option. On the boots, we're running Covered Advance. Obviously, I think this is just, it's pretty much used in every single build. Just extra 20% damage when you're out of combat for at least 4 seconds. Again, stacking that weak spot and weapon damage suffixes. On our gloves, we're running the weak spot damage boost. Pretty self-explanatory, obviously. And I think that is all the mods and weapons. If I forgot to show the calibrations, I'll quickly do that. So Rapid Style weak spot on the Dusty. If you did want to kit out the sniper, you would run Rapid Style double weak spot. And again, as you can see, this is a fairly squishy build. For the Cradle, we are running Handgun Enhancement, pretty obvious. Steady Hands, which is for our marking targets. So we mark a target with bingo, switch back, and we get an extra 20% damage for our Dusty. Fantastic, love that. We're running Bounty Hunter. Now this is really good if you mark the target and then kill an enemy, and now you're going to have a 15-second 35% buff when you kill other targets in the vicinity. Very, very strong for bosses that have a lot of ads specifically. And then next to that, we're running Tactical Combo, self-explanatory. Agility, which can also be swapped out for Master Tactician or Rapid Aid depending on your preference. Deadly Combo, this is just increased bullet effect damage for Shrapnel. Deviation Master, obviously for great ones, this is self-explanatory. And then last but not least, Tracking Bullet, which is a Shrapnel buff. And I think that covers most of the gear there. And I'll quickly show the stats because I know a lot of people might be interested in that. So we're at 188% weak spot, 105% weapon damage bonus, and we've got a little bit of PvE bonuses here too. A lot of accuracy and stability, which is important. 533 fire rate is pretty fast, and then we have shrapnel damage bonus down the bottom here. And again, we are fairly squishy, and that is the point of this build. Other quick things I want to mention is consumables, I guess. So obviously I usually run iced tea, which I think I already have active. Yep, so that's just roll movement speed. Pretty much I run iced tea with everything. Unless I'm raiding, I might run a energy drink for the double jump, but other than that, I'm going to run iced tea. For the food, I will either run Stardust Ratatouille for movement speed, or just canned assorted fruits. You could also run shattered bread for 25% weapon damage. Ultimately, you probably want to use canned assorted fruit, as it's going to be the cheapest to make. Next to that, other things you might want to use are canned lunch meat with the deer and rabbit meat, which will give you total extra 65 stamina, which is pretty easy to make, especially if you have lethal rabbit deviations, always farming up that meat for you when you log in the next day. And then obviously for your whims, we're running living armor, Aero Leap, Parapsychology, and Predator for PvP. For PvE, you can get away with living armor, and that's it. And you can also use the Weaver, which is also very strong, especially silos like EX1, where there is a lot of ads in the final boss. And I think that covers most things. Green stims, that's pretty obvious. For deviation, you can use the Wolf, which is Shadowhound Wolf, whatever your deviation it's called exactly, I don't remember, which is really good for tackling bosses. And if you are in PvP, of course, you're going to use Mini Wonder. Now, there is something I quickly want to mention about Mini Wonder itself that I've seen a lot of discussion about, and it is why do you and why should you use a low-level Mini Wonder? It is because lower level Mini Wonders will only have or suck up bullets that are closer to you. Now, why that is important is because it has effectively EHP or power that depletes the longer or the more someone shoots at your Mini Wonder. So the more bullets your Mini Wonder eats, the faster it is going to effectively go back on cooldown, right? So what you want to do is you want to make sure the Mini Wonder black hole radius is as small as possible, which is done by using low-level Mini Wonders. Ideally, I think you want a Growing Pains 2 with a low skill rating and activity rating to, again, suck up as little bullets as possible that are only aiming at you, because the higher your Mini Wonder level, the wider the bullet radius, meaning even bullets that are originally going to miss you if you didn't have Mini Wonder active are going to get sucked up. That is the explanation behind why you run low-level Mini Wonders. I don't know why it's taken so long for a clear answer to be put out there, but that is literally it. That is why you do it. And I think that is most of the video done. I think that is pretty much everything I wanted to talk about. And yeah, I think I will leave you guys here. The Dusty build is very fun. See you guys in the next Once Human video. And if you're a New World player, I do have a New World Eternum videos coming very soon as well. Peace.